You ever wonder what those push pins are for? I finally figured it out. So when you buy your T-top weather stripping, one big piece goes from the front 8-pillar back to the rear of the door. There's one push pin that's always pre-installed, and there's really nowhere else to put push pins. I kept wondering after all these different packages I bought, and they all have 5 push pins in them, what the heck are they for? So what I took off of here only had the one. Well, then some conversations were going on a Facebook group about installing weather stripping, and asked for some pictures of something that was thought to be OEM and original. And a guy really helped me out and sent me some pictures, and sure enough, he had push pins inside his factory weather stripping up here. So I started looking. Sure enough, I got 2 holes. So now I've made some paint on those and transferred it to know where they line up after I had this exactly where I wanted it. There's no spots in the rubber for them, so I'm going to have to cut some holes, I guess. But that's where 2 of them go, at least on some years, maybe. Maybe it's, well, I don't know. My kit is 87, 88 specific, but this rubber does not have a spot to put them. So then I started looking, well, where else? Sure enough, down here, the one that comes pre-installed, it's right there, but I've got a second hole. If you flip that around, there's another spot right there. I guess you just got to put it in yourself. So that's 4 spots, but I don't know why there's 2 more push pins in the bag. The only other place I can see is there's a hole right there in this ear, and I assume that was just a place to let your adhesive kind of ooze through and help keep it in place, because there's no spots to put a push pin, and I don't think that would make sense in that location anyway. But there's one on the other end too, right there. But again, there's nowhere to put it. That up there is a drain hole, but it doesn't line up with this. So I don't know. Let me know if you have experience and have other locations where those push pins go, but I haven't found anywhere else. But that sure makes this a lot easier to get in place and stay in place, because I'm trying to figure out how to keep it from flopping around and what kind of adhesive I'm going to try to use. But those push pins make a lot of sense. They just don't have a spot you can see in the weather stripping to put them. I'm taking a paint pen here and making some marks around these 2 holes. You can see one of them is real close to the screw that holds the A-pillar trim on. And the other one's just up a little ways before you get to your retainer bracket. All right, let's see if we got our marks. There we go. All right. All right, I'm going to take these long needle nose and hold on to one of these push pins and try to feed it up through the channel here. Actually, I'll spray a little bit of lithium in there just to try to keep from tearing anything up. I'm going to try to go to the back one first. All right. Now I'll try the next one. Okay. That was pretty easy. Get all my old paint off of there. Now I'm going to take some alcohol and wipe this area down real well again. Now that I've let these set up a little bit, I ran my 1/2 inch filler piece up through. I've showed that in a video before. I got so if you look at it from how it's going to be, this is the driver's side and this is the orientation up against the door opening. And so this top side that has the little extra flap, that's going to be resting up against your A-pillar trim, so your window is going to be here. There is 2 channels that run inside this, so there's a kind of a rib that goes all the way through, and it makes 2 different openings, all from one end to the other. I fed this 1/2 inch filler foam through the top channel that will rest up against the edge of the window when it's closed. I didn't put it down here on this portion, I put it up in the top piece. We'll find out how that works once I get to the final install, but to me that seemed to make sense to run it up through there. The other end, which here's the pre-installed clip that goes on by the rear of the door, and we have one spot here that is not all the way through, but almost all the way through. It must be optional, or maybe some years some cars used it and others didn't. Not really sure, but since I have the hole for it in the frame of the car, I'm gonna go ahead and put this second clip in there. So here it is. Again, I'm gonna use my long needle nose and get that in there. So there you can see I've got the other clip as well. And when you're ready to finally do your last permanent install, you're going to want to look for any holes that you're not using and fill them in with some butyl. So I'm going to use those 2. So I'm probably just going to put another dab of that weather stripping adhesive all around those 2 clips, and when I push them in, that'll help make a seal in there. I'll fill some butyl in that spot because I'm not using it. And then I'm not going to do any adhesive yet anywhere else until all of it is in place and I have my alignment back up where I want it. Then you'll start peeling the corners out, and I'll video that when I'm ready to start putting adhesive in there. You're going to pack a lot of butyl into those corners before you put your final placement and adhesive in there. I don't have any holes here to fill with butyl. I'm going to be using those 2, and then I'm going to be doing some adhesive at the very end. So I'll show that when I'm ready for that part also. In this corner, I'm going to just put a little more butyl and make sure I'm going to put a little more butyl right around these seams, kind of thin layer over all the different surfaces to really seal that up. Well, getting your alignment started on this end will be pretty easy because you're just going to use those 2 spots with these 2 clips. This is just loosely held in up here, is the only place I've done anything just to hold it up. So now what I like to do is get the back side closest to the door kind of pushed into place, and then this lip here on the outside is not in that channel yet, and I just start to at the bottom squeeze squeeze together and push in towards that back channel. And I usually don't even need to use a tool. If you just roll this with your fingers, you can feel it go in the front and rear channel together. And it's usually not that hard. Since I got carried away, I got to pull it back out because I forgot to put my butyl in that hole right there. So I think I've got everything where it's supposed to be, but just one last step to be sure, I am going to take one of these tools and push straight back on the inside just to make sure I got it all in that channel. And then on the outside, you can just tell by looking if it's all in there consistently, and it is. Now I'm going to turn my attention to this front corner. I'm not going to do anything with all of that for now. I'm going to get this corner up into place, and I'm trying to make as much of this stick out into the opening as I can. I don't want it, you know, tucked way back towards the windshield when I start running this into that channel. I want it pulled out further, not so much that it doesn't look right, but I want some gap in here so that this will compress up against the part on the T-top as much as possible when it's installed. So I got a few different pieces of butyl here, and I'm going to start filling in up in that cavity under there. Get some butyl packed in there. I've already started packing where the different pieces of trim come together. All right, so I've got everything packed up in there. And you can see up in there as well. Just trying to close it anywhere where I have seams between different pieces of metal. As I start getting this into place, I just kind of look for the angle there and kind of line it up with the angle in the metal bracket and the angle on the trim. The reason I don't put all of this in the channel yet, one is it'll help me readjust this in and out to line it up better with the T-top. And then two, sometimes if you just start at one end, you'll end up with excess on one of these corners and it'll be balled up. So I try to put a little bit of tension on it as I go towards the corner on each side, and then I may have to pull it out and try it a couple of times so that it's evenly spaced all the way around. The first few inches here started in the channel. I'm not going to go all the way down yet because I'll likely have to readjust this a couple times. So now I'm going to start working on this up here and get it into the channel, and then start putting the T-top in to see exactly where I want to get this positioned before I go the rest of the way down the A pillar. And the way I do this, since I already have the rubber trim piece in that holds the headliner in, I'm not going to remove that, but it does make it a little harder to get this into the channel. So I always kind of tip it in the edge closest to the inside first, and then I take this and I'm also putting a little bit of tension on it towards the corner, not stretching it really, but taking up the slack. And then I just push down on the other side of the channel, on the back side, run that back and forth a couple times, get a little more. Then I'll get a little more started, putting a little tension on it, and then go and use this to get it fed down in on the back side. If it looks a little cockeyed, then I just continue to push down with this pry tool to get it to even up. Now before I do the corner, I'm going to do the same thing on the front side over here. Angle it in towards this inside of the channel, and then use my tool to push it down on the back side. In this case, it'd be on the front side. Do that a couple of times as I'm pushing down. Take up a little bit of the slack towards that corner. Do the same thing. So by doing that, it looks like once I get this corner started, I don't know yet if I'm going to have too much slack back here or not. So I'm going to have to do a little more and we'll figure it out. All right, so I think that worked out pretty well, and I didn't have to pull it out and move it around and pull or loosen up any spots. It fell in place pretty good. So now we'll start continuing down the front here and see how that lines up. So similar to the back side, I just angle in the bottom here in towards the channel, and then I compress it down and force it into the top channel. This one does have this extra little flap that I pull out away so I can see behind it until I get everything pushed in. And then I just tuck it back inside underneath this trim piece. And the way I can tell if I've got it all seated correctly is I should have a fairly consistent gap all the way down of this edge here compared to the trim. When I see a few spots where it's not even, I either push in or pull out a little more. So let's shut the door here and see how it looks. I have not attached anything down here yet. Well, as a first pass goes, that's not too bad. I don't have any huge gaps, a little bit right there, but I don't have any foam tubing inside here yet either. Everything else, not too bad there. Over here, got a little too much compression, so the window is going to need adjusted and raised up a little bit. But as far as the weather stripping goes, there's no gaps, so that's good. That's actually a lot better than the passenger side and a lot better than I expected for the first try. With the T-top in, the front seam is tight together. Doesn't look too bad. But on the back here, we got a big problem. I don't know how to really fix that. You can't make this go that direction, and you can't really make this go that direction without moving it from here. And I don't have enough extra. I would say that's good there, but I don't want to take it away and move it towards the rear. So that's a significant difference in length. Well, the first thing I'm going to try is to pull all this channel out again and try to pull this up more and raise this up towards the inside just a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'd like to try to change this angle just a little bit more and roll it in towards the inside of the car just a little bit. And then once I do that, I'll have to put all this back in the channel to hold it in place in that new position. All right, with that adjustment, I think that helped line this up a little better. I don't know that I need to do any more with that. It did get better back here by quite a bit. I'm going to take the T-top back out, pull the piece out on this corner and try to move it in towards the end, add a little more tension, just a little bit more. And then I'm going to get a couple of pieces of short length of that 1/2 inch foam tubing, get up inside there and see if that helps us here. All right, so I pulled this back to get access to that slot there. I've got a piece of this foam with some of the spray lithium grease on it, and I'm going to feed that down in there and get it go down towards the door a couple of inches, and then make sure it's all the way up inside this corner here. All right, we got that fed in there. Up inside here as well, and it goes down just a little ways, about right to there. Let's get it back in place and see what happens. All right, we are getting closer and closer. I'd still like a little more compression between these two. There's a little gap up here. I may try to put another little bit of foam inside this corner, but I think we're getting somewhere. And again, we'll have to remove some of this eventually to get it adhesived up to put in permanent. But I'm really happy with the driver's side here. Well, I got so excited about the driver's side coming along a lot better than I expected. I went ahead and opened up this newest piece of passenger side trim. This came from National Parts Depot when I got the new T-top interior covers, and you can see it's going to require a lot of scrubbing to try to get all this discolored crap off. You can see it's got a lot of blemishes in the roughness of the rubber divots, gas holes, but luckily I don't see any extremely thin walls. It does look like, I mean, it's got a few pinholes there, but nothing like the one that's on the car right now. If I go to the back side, similar, very rough, very discolored. Gotta try my best to get that all cleaned up without damaging this seam. It is thin there, but it looks a little better, definitely not worse than the one I got on here. So this is number 4. You can see there it's very thin and got a much bigger pinhole in it. It goes all the way around. More damage back there. And then on this side, I've already filled that in with some adhesive glue because it had popped apart quite a bit. Big old gash there, but it doesn't go through. This is a little bit of a smoother, nicer looking area, but the seam is worse. So I think I'm gonna throw this one away, but it's still no good. So that one's coming out, and I think this other one's gonna go in, and I'm gonna hopefully get this wrapped up because it's getting nicer out and I'm ready to have this thing drivable.